Welcome to the Wisdom Words Podcast with Pastors Dale and Joel Evrist. This podcast draws wisdom from the Word to engage the questions of today.
Welcome, everybody. For those who are new with us, my name is Joel, and I'm here with my dad, Pastor Dale, also known as PD. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody. Glad to have you with us today.
Welcome to episode 4. We're in a series of podcasts right now about how to have more and healthier marriages and do so through what we call the Guard Your Heart principle. In particular, we're discussing a process of discovery called courtship, which is basically a biblical and church community process for helping people discover who God is calling them to marry. Today's episode is exciting because we're going to hear some stories from folks who've gone through the courtship process and are super excited to share about it. Basically, what we're going to do is hear some stories. PD and I will make some comments, and then we'll hear more stories. We're going to start with an amazing couple in our church, Trevor and Jessica Dehmlow. Let's hear what they have to say about some sweet moments from their courtship, some challenges they experienced, and some things they wish they could go back and say to their younger selves. Let's listen in.
Well, some of the sweetest moments for me were taking road trips to meet each other's families. Jess grew up in Texas, and I grew up in Illinois, so we hadn't really met one another's parents. And so we took a road trip to each location. And those extended times with Jess, it showed me in the courtship that this might actually end in marriage.
Well, yeah. So I have a unique backstory that leads up to my answer to this question. I actually received a word from the Lord when I was 13 about not dating. I remember him asking me at one point, do you trust that I will bring about the right man for you to marry at the right time? And I said, yes, Lord, I trust you. And after that, it wasn't so much words I heard as much as it was a sense that I wasn't going to date until the Lord showed me, who I was supposed to date. And that's all well and good when you're a young teenage girl who isn't even of a marriageable age. But when you start getting into your 20s and you're trying to walk off this conviction, the tone changes. Meaning I started having my family and friends question me, and even church leaders from previous churches asking if I had commitment issues or possibly fear of relationships. So, of course, I began questioning my convictions as well, but I just knew that this was something that I needed to walk out. I had read books on courtship. I had heard of other people courting, but I had never actually met anyone in person who did that. And I kind of just settled with the idea that I was probably going to enter into a dating relationship where I would give these courtship materials to a guy and say, hey, I want to do this, so read up and get back to me. But eventually the Lord led me to move here to Tennessee, and I found myself at New Song, where I started attending the young adults gatherings. And it was interesting because I started noticing that the young adults I was hanging out with were not in dating relationships, which was very odd considering the other young adult groups that I had been a part of in previous churches. And I later discovered that New Song teaches a guard your heart message that isn't specific to dating and relationships, but it's a wisdom principle that encourages us not to give our hearts away so quickly to people or things without taking the time to seek the Lord and His will first. So, of course, I was intrigued at this point, and someone eventually explained to me that New Song has a courtship process for people to walk through to discover if a couple is to be married or not. And I literally cried when I heard this, because it was the first time that I was among peers and leaders who shared my same convictions. So that was the sweetest moment for me, even before Trevor and I actually got into a real courtship. It was the moment I felt validated in my convictions, and just the feeling that courtship, it wasn't something that I was going to have to create for myself. During our courtship, Trevor had asked me who my closest friends were, and one of the first friends I had named was a guy. And after more conversations, Trevor learned that me and this guy were pretty close. We had met in Bible school and not only shared memories from there, but we had taken a road trip together. We'd seen each other's families. We would text each other, call each other sometimes late at night, but he was always just a friend to me. And then Trevor eventually asked if there was ever any shared feelings between us. And I told him that this guy had at one point mentioned he did have feelings for me, but I told him I didn't see him that way, and we moved on. But as Trevor and I's courtship progressed, Trevor let me know that my having a close relationship with another guy was bothering him. And at first I became very defensive, but then Trevor asked, and not in any sort of angry way, but very respectfully, how I would feel if the situation were the other way around. Would I be okay with him having a close friend in his life that was a girl, knowing that they text each other on a regular basis, or even that they had been on the phone last night talking because she had a hard time at work? And as he even mentioned that, oh man, I could just feel the jealousy rising up in me, and even feeling hurt that Trevor would allow another girl that much of his time and attention. And I began to see my relationship with this guy in a whole new way. And I remember talking with other leaders about it, and through their help, I was able to see that although I hadn't dated this guy or even given myself to him in any sort of physical way, I had given myself to him emotionally and shared more with him than was really appropriate. Not only that, but I was not being a good friend to him, and I was being selfish and didn't see how miserable it must have been for him to have feelings for me and yet know that we would never be more than friends. I'd even been talking with him this whole time about Trevor and our courtship process. I can't imagine how he felt. And I eventually called him up and apologized to him for not being a good friend. I shared with him that our relationship was not healthy for either of us. And I was actually surprised when he agreed. So we parted ways. And I do want to add that no one forced me to do that. Trevor wasn't upset with me. I just wish I'd known about the Guard Your Heart principles earlier. And I'm just so thankful for leaders in my life who helped me see what I couldn't see at the time.
So Jess and I's testimonies are very different when it comes to our past relationships. Jess had a word from the Lord. She spoke about with not dating when she was younger and followed that conviction. And this was an incredible gift she gave me. Unfortunately, I was not able to offer that same gift. After my parents divorced my freshman year of high school, I started dating and not living my teenage years as God would have had me live. I found New Song at 20, and I learned about the Guard Your Heart principle and walked that out from 20 to 26 when we started our courtship. But I still had a checkered past, and I knew that would be difficult to share with Jess. I had questions kick around like, would this disqualify me? Would it alter the way she sees me? Would this conversation end our courtship? It was something that was a fear of mine during our courtship. And I am so thankful that I've got a woman who forgives me like Jesus. She saw me for who I am and who I was in Christ, and not for my past failures.
Aww, thanks.
Yeah. Well, when I was younger, I hoped courtship would be worth the effort. And I can say after 13 years of marriage, it was absolutely worth the effort. The process is not perfect, but it is proven. The foundation that was laid was strong and deep. We've been able to construct a healthy and lasting marriage on the foundation that was poured during our courtship and engagement seasons. I would just say to those who are at a marriageable age and stage, I would encourage you to trust in God in this exciting and at times difficult season. If you have a desire to get married, God knows who that person is. The courtship process allows a biblical framework to discover the Lord's will for who your spouse might be.
Yeah. I would say that with my testimony of desiring a courtship before I even knew that it was a real thing, I would tell my younger self that it does exist, and it's even better than you thought it would be. So it was incredibly beneficial having leaders to go to and help us. And I would say that that same pattern, that healthy lifestyle of walking out life in community has crossed over into our marriage. Mm-hmm. Trevor and I, we don't live our lives on an island. We reach out to leaders in our lives for counsel on so many things, and I feel that's actually one of the reasons we have such a healthy marriage and family.
Wow, that was really, really helpful. I love hearing Trevor and Jessica's stories, their different backgrounds. Petey, what were some things that stuck out to you?
Yeah, that was so good. I really appreciate that couple so much. And I love what Jessica said about getting a word from the Lord at a young age. That is, man, if you can do that, that will save you so much heartache, so many problems. But really, Trevor talked about getting a word from the Lord later on. And so whether you get it early or whether you get it later, you really do need to have a word from the Lord. It can't be the conviction on the part of people leading you only. You have to have a conviction about it as well. Love what Jessica said about the idea that the guard your heart principle is a wisdom principle for every area of life. And it really is. Courtship is not some isolated thing that is separate from every other thing you do in your life. It's specific, and it's something that can lead to finding your partner for life. But the guard your heart principle is a wisdom principle for life. Both of them talked about it being a proven process, but not a perfect process. Nobody's claiming that this is a perfect process, but it is proven, and it's been created by seasoned practitioners, people who have really given a large part of their life to helping have something that is healthy and holy that people can walk through. And I really appreciated the struggle that they went through with that friendship that Jessica had, and I thought they handled that so well, and what they found out is, and I would put it this way, you don't want to mimic marriage in any relationship, and especially with the opposite sex. Because just like we're hardwired to find our other, we're also hardwired to find that person that we share everything that's in our heart with, and that is found in marriage. And just lastly, I loved Trevor's story about overcoming a compromised past. I mean, I know this man, you know this man, and so often I see this. It's like if I don't remember your whole story, but I look at who you are today, what you look like is you have believed this for your entire life. So thank God for his redemptive work, and he just did such a wonderful thing in Trevor's life, and I just appreciated his honesty and basically to say to other people, hey, don't worry. If your past is a little fuzzy, a little compromised, God can take that, turn it around, and bring you into a glorious future.
Yeah, that's strong. I agree. I really want to say in particular to parents who are listening, you got to help your kids go to the Lord and get their word from Christ about this conviction. Because once they know that this is what the Lord is calling them to do, then through the ups and downs and emotional twists and turns of adolescence and college and this attraction and this person being attracted to me, it just simplifies things when they know, hey, I'm waiting for a marriageable age and stage, and I'm going to walk through a courtship process with godly, married couples in my life. So that's huge, parents. A lot of times we can think that our kids share our convictions because they hear us talking about them all the time. But oftentimes they don't. They're just trying not to get in trouble. And trying not to get in trouble is not the same as actively serving the Lord because you have a conviction about something. So we want to help our kids develop a conviction. I also love, I think Jessica basically summed up the heart behind courtship when she said, waiting for the right man at the right time to marry. I mean, that's got to be a tagline right there. If we're helping our kids with anything, and for the young people out there that are waiting for that marriageable age and stage, for all the fellas out there, you're waiting for the right woman at the right time to marry. That is the heart behind this. To all the ladies out there, you're waiting for the right man at the right time to marry. I also really liked how Jessica and Trevor came from completely different backgrounds, and yet the same process was able to help and bless both of them. So we want to emphasize that this process can be tailor-made for any couple. It doesn't matter what your background is. Maybe your background is the same as the person that you're interested in. Maybe it's completely different. Courtship is for you. Anything else, Dad, that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I think that's so good what you're saying. And, when I see this couple and we have the privilege of doing life in Jesus with them, and you see the love they have for one another, the love they have for their kids, the way they serve the Lord without compromise, and just have become such wonderful leaders in our body. People are going to look and say, I want a marriage like that. How can I have a marriage like that? Well, the courtship process was a part of that, and I loved it when they were talking about this is a deep process. It is a dynamic process, and it will deliver. It will deliver the right result. It's not like an assembly line. It's not like it's a work of art. It is something that we can create together. This is your life. It's kind of like when you dedicate a baby, when you marry a couple, when you baptize someone. Why is it that you never get tired of any of those things? Because we're talking about individual lives. And so it is with courtship, that this is a work of art. This is something that we are submitting to God and allowing Him by His Word and His Spirit to lead, guide, direct, shape, and create something that helps to reveal to a man and a woman whether or not this is the person that God has called them to. And this couple, they walked it out beautifully, and it's just very proud of them, and just thrilled to see the kind of things that courtship can produce.
Yeah, one last thing. I love, you're going to hear this more and more stories that you're going to hear over these next couple of episodes here. But one of the questions that we asked these couples is, if you could go back and tell your younger self something about this process, what would you tell them? And I love what Jessica said. Jessica said, I would tell my younger self that the process is better than you could imagine it to be. It's better. And it's better because it's submitted to the Lord. It's surrounded by godly community. It's led and guided by the Spirit. It's safe. It's fun. It's full of friendship. And it's sacred. It's a sacred process of trying to discover, as she said, that right person at the right time to marry. So just want to say to everybody that's listening, that's maybe hoping to be in that process one day, or everybody that's listening that's trying to help younger people to get ready for this process, hear it from the lips of the people who've gone through it. It really is better than you can imagine it to be. If you'll hang on, have endurance, trust the Lord, at the right time, you're going to get to experience something really special. This next one is from Cam and Kameryn King, another wonderful couple with such an awesome story. Let's listen in.
Yeah, I think one of the sweetest moments and just days in general that we would have was we had these things called date days. I think in those times, one of the ones that stands out to me was the trip where we went to the Nashville Zoo, and while walking around the zoo and having all these kids running around being frantic and just kids, we got to enjoy some great ice cream, some lemonade, talk about our spiritual journey. And I think that just was really pretty much what courtship was in general for that entire time. It just was talking about kind of ourselves individually and getting to know kind of one another in that way that we didn't get to before. So I think in general, especially us coming from the time of being together already before courtship and before coming to New Song, I think this was really just a shift of like going back and realizing, oh, there was things about you that I didn't know about, and things of your past that I didn't know about, that despite us being together for some time, it was just a good learning opportunity and seeing what the Lord was showing me and if it was the right thing and what He was calling me to do. So,
yeah, it was definitely interesting with us being together 2 or 3 years before we started the courtship process, kind of having to go back to really kind of the beginning, but it was a nice refresher and almost kind of a restarting of the relationship that was already there. Because we felt like we had the freedom to take the time that we needed And even with us having a longer courtship, we were able to take that time and go on day dates and really revisit conversations that we may have had a year and a half ago.
I don't know that there's really a time limit that you're supposed to have on courtship, because it's not really a timed process in the Lord's eyes. But I definitely think ours was a little bit longer than I think we originally anticipated and everything. But it was longer for good reasons. Yeah. It was time for us to really get to figure out whether or not this was what the Lord was calling us to. And I mean, even there was just times in there of us learning with our leaders stuff that we needed to work out first in our own hearts before we could really get an answer to certain things. So patience, 100%. I mean, even thinking back to when we first started courtship, we were recommended to talk with some other young adults, and we ended up going out to dinner. And we talked with them, and they had pointed something out that at the time I didn't know really what it entailed and what it meant. But they had talked about that they, in their courtship process, had struggled with submitting to authority. And at the time, I kind of just nodded my head and said, yeah, no, I totally get that. That makes sense. And while going through the process ourselves, I realized what that meant. And it wasn't submitting to necessarily my leaders and them just being leaders above me. It was submitting to the Lord and the Lord's authority. And seeing what he was calling us to. So in that, of course, was some uncomfortable times of when are we going to speed this up? When is this going to happen? I'm excited. I feel like this is the right thing. And it just had taking a step back and realizing, no, this is not the time yet. This is not what the Lord is calling us to do. So while it was at certain times felt almost discouraging, at the very end of it was way more encouraging and uplifting, because it was a realization of, wow, this is what the Lord called us to. So
I think what he was saying about just the idea of really submitting to leaders and submitting to the Lord was something that we had always heard, but never really understood what that meant. So the idea that we had this, we'll figure it out, we'll handle it. It's kind of just how we had been walking in our relationship in a lot of ways. Things would happen. Okay, we'll figure it out. We have each other. Yeah, we could rely on the Lord, but like at the end of the day, it's really just us. And that's definitely not how you need to walk out a relationship in any way. And it took us a while to really understand what that meant. And there came a point in our courtship where all of these issues started arising. We were like, I don't really understand what's happening. Like, we're feeling this conviction and this guilt. Like, ew, what is this? What's going on? And our leaders were like, you're not submitted to the Lord. You're just treating this process like it's another part of dating. This is something completely different. And if your heart is not in it and in it to understand what the Lord wants from you guys and what his will is for your life, you're not doing it for the right reasons. I mean, it completely changed the way that we looked, I think, at our relationships with the Lord and with each other. And it was really freeing to be able to take that time and go, okay, Lord, I don't know what's going to happen with this. Yes, we've had all this time together, but at the end of the day, it's completely in your hands. So we're leaving it up to you. And it was freeing, more freeing than I think what I thought, because I tend to want to control and white knuckle a lot of situations just because I feel comfort in that. But really releasing it to the Lord and even to leaders, and knowing that the leaders that took us through courtship really loved us and they were looking out for us. But they also were keeping us accountable, and they were holding us to really seek what the Lord wanted and not what we wanted in the end.
I mean, looking back at when we started dating and everything, I think if I were to tell that Kameryn about what this was, I think that Kameryn would think the same thing that I thought, was that it was kind of this initial weird mentality of, I know this girl, I've already been in a relationship with her, I've been dating her and everything. And it's almost like I don't want other people to come in and be involved in my relationship, and viewing it from that standpoint. And instead, it isn't that. They're not trying to control the relationship. They're not trying to say, well, no, you can't do that. It's not that. It's a they're seeing and hearing from the Lord in ways and that they're more wise in than my 20-year-old self, and seeing that just how that can shift the overall perspective of what courtship is. And it's just this mentality of, Lord, is this the right thing for us? Is this what you're calling us to do? Is this the right timing? What is it that you're seeing?
I think what I would say to my younger self is just trust in the Lord and trust in your leaders. And it's okay to let people in your life.
Wow, that was really good. PD, what stuck out to you?
Well, I thought it was so interesting how this couple had known each other and dated for 2 to 3 years, just kind of doing it on their own, like a lot of people do, and then just coming to the place where they realized we need a divine restart. And they began to take time under the guidance of some others to really talk deeply about their spiritual journey, their life journey, and they just found themselves filling in just all kinds of gaps that they had that they didn't even realize that they had. And they discovered, and Cam said this, and I thought it was so helpful. He said that there was no set time frame. And I thought about, when he said that, I thought about these words, doing whatever it takes for as long as it takes. That's one of the ways we describe love, that love does whatever it takes for as long as it takes for the sake of the one being loved. And that Cam came to that revelation that, well, this is going to take as long as it takes to make sure that we love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and that we love each other as ourselves, and that we love each other the way we've been loved in Christ Jesus. And then it was very interesting to me, too, how they found themselves bristling at the idea of submitting to leaders, and that they uncovered some roots of rebellion in their lives that I'm not sure they knew were there. And we've all found out that in relationships and many other area in life, if the roots are rebellion, well, the fruit will be rebellion as well. But in submitting to leaders, what they discovered is these were not people trying to control their lives. Sometimes we've talked about leaders as being like Spirit-led river guides, where the Holy Spirit's the river, and we're just kind of helping to navigate. We're not saying we have to go here, we have to go there. We're watching what the Holy Spirit is doing, and that leaders, and we even use this language to describe leaders, they're mentors, they're coaches. They're not trying to prescribe a predetermined outcome. They are trying to help people to determine what God has prescribed as the predetermined outcome. And I watched them. I watched them as they learned more and more to guard their heart properly, but drop their guard when it came to the Lord, because they really were holding him off, and to drop their guard when it came to other people. And the more they just relaxed and allowed the Lord to lead and guide, they grew individually and they grew together as a couple. And so I just appreciated their candor and the way that they shared their story. So what were some of the things you thought about?
I think it was amazing that their story of courtship really wasn't solely formative and proactive, but remedial and reactive. These guys had been dating for 2-3 years and, trying, but it had led to some real challenges in their relationship with each other, and some things just needed to come to the surface. They both needed to really be discipled and mentored and coached in Christ. Anyway, I hope that really helps people who are listening, because some people may think, well, courtship is for, those people who've grown up in church and they've never dated anyone and they've never done anything except loving Jesus, and all of a sudden they're in a courtship. And it's like, well, yeah, it is for people like that. But also, this process for the Kings, their relationship was healed as they went through this process. That's huge. That their relationship was healed and strengthened through this process, as well as help them prepare to walk into premarital and into marriage. And they're doing amazing. They've been married, getting close here to 2 years, and God is doing amazing things in their life. And it's really exciting. Also, you talked a little bit about leaders. And as the listeners hear these various stories, you're going to hear a lot about leaders. So let's talk about that for a second. First of all, let's acknowledge the fact that a lot of folks out there are under toxic leadership. There's a lot of controlling, manipulative, and or codependent leadership out there in the church. It's wrong, it's sick, it's harmful. So as you hear these stories, what are these guys talking about when they're talking about leaders? There's no elder board over courtship at our church. There's no specific group of deputized overseers who tell the young people in our church who to marry and how to do it. That's weird. Nobody wants to be involved in that. So when you're hearing these guys talk about leaders, these leaders are simply this: mature, godly couples who are involved in helping to cover the two people in the courtship. That's what they are. And also keep in mind that the only reason leaders are involved in this process is because the two people in the courtship asked. Like PD said, these are coaches. When you have a coach, that means you signed up for the coaching. It means you signed up for the team. Nobody forced you to be a part of the team. You're on the team because you want coaching. You want help. That's what these leaders are. And I loved how the Kings just were amazed at how helpful that was to just get some help from some mature, godly married couples, because they themselves wanted to one day become a mature, godly married couple, and now they're well on their way. What else stuck out to you, PD?
Well, having had the opportunity to be a part of their wedding, one of the things that I saw was and I've seen it so many times, is just the beauty of the finish line. That also becomes a starting line. This commencement moment where, and it was such a joyous day, and they were both beaming, and we just had such a wonderful celebration, and they were ready, because rather than trying to do it on their own, they leaned into the Lord, and they leaned into leaders, godly leaders who were all there. And we were able to celebrate a wonderful day as they began their life together. And so this courtship process, it doesn't simply help you to find and discover who the person is that you're to spend the rest of your life with. It also helps you to become a better and more complete person. And so that is true in every case, and absolutely true with Cam and Kameryn.
Yeah, one of the final things that stuck out to me was what Cam said about submission. Not to leadership per se, but to the Lord. That through this process, Cam realized, I'm really not submitted to the Lord. I'm trying to make this relationship be what I want it to be, at the pace I want it to go at, and I'm trying to make Kameryn do what I want her to do. And for him to get that revelation, that is huge. That's what 1 Peter chapter 5 talks about, is to submit yourself under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. Public service announcement to all the ladies who are listening. All the single ladies, please don't start singing that song, but to all the single ladies, you do not want to marry somebody who is not submitted to the Lord. that is not going to work out well. This process helped Cam to realize that he wanted what he wanted when he wanted it and wasn't submitted to the will and timing of the Lord. Well, later on, like you said, Dad, if that's the root, that's going to be some pretty bad fruit later on in that marriage. But through this process, he really submitted himself to the Lord. And now that's a man worth marrying. Not a perfect man, but a submitted man. So ladies, as you're looking for, who God is calling you to marry, please don't try and marry a man who is not submitted to the Lord. That's not going to work out well. All right, let's hear one more story. The final couple that we're going to hear from on this episode is Alex and Sarah Hart. Really, really love these guys. We've known them since they were kids. We're really looking forward to you hearing their story. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, so for us, one of the sweet moments we have was actually that initial meeting where I asked Sarah to be in a courtship with me. It was great. We went to Burger Republic in Murfreesboro, sat down, and I just remember going into that being totally at peace, not worried about, do I have to impress this girl? Do I have to make her like me? None of that was there. It was really just like, hey, we're going to meet to get to know each other better, to grow as friends, and to just really be covered by leadership. And it was really, really pivotal because I think it definitely set the tone for how the courtship went.
Yeah. So Alex and I have known each other since we were 12, but we were never besties or anything, especially not at age 24 when we started courting. So it was really great and sweet to get to know each other better and more deeply as we became friends during our courtship journey. And we also enjoyed planning and going on fun dates. Yeah. Like we went on a picnic, we went bowling, we went to the range. I cut my finger and gushed blood, but we can talk about it later. Went to the zoo, and then it was all within the boundaries of courtship and with the blessing and covering of our leaders. Yeah. So those were just really sweet times.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that we did as kind of like a fun date was go to the Tail of the Dragon, which is just this like really scenic, beautiful road up in the mountains, windy roads, all that stuff. And we went, and it's, it was a good 4-hour drive from where I picked you up at. And during that time, we were just kind of able to, be at peace. Like I mentioned before, just like, there's no sense of like, I need to impress this girl. I need to, none of that was there. Like, obviously you want to present yourself well and whatnot, but we were just able to kind of talk like friends. We were able to go back over courtship topics that we had already covered. We were able to talk about family values and then just different things, like learn what made each other laugh, and just had like a really great and like sweet trip there and back. But even in the middle of our courtship, I remember I had to go to Germany for 3 weeks. Wasn't expecting it. It kind of popped up in the middle of it. And during that time, we were able to put a pause on the different courtship topics that we were going over and really just focus on communicating. And so what that looked like for us was, being intentional, scheduling time for phone calls or FaceTime, sending each other short little Marco Polo videos, just kind of giving us each other updates about what I was doing in Germany and what Sarah was doing in her, at the time, preschool class. And then, we were just kind of able to connect that way, and it was really sweet. And when I came home from that, I had learned, the Lord had revealed to me rather that, Sarah was definitely the person I needed to propose to and just move forward with that. And it was funny because I came home and I was ready, and like I had to wait because the Lord wanted to reveal to Sarah in a different way, actually a similar way, but at a different time. And so she had gone to Africa, Kenya, right? And, the Lord, we did a similar thing. We were video chatting and sending videos back and forth. And, when she came home, she had that word from the Lord that we were supposed to move forward. And so that was really cool. Really sweet moment.
So one of the biggest challenges that I face in courtship was it just took a little bit longer for me to hear clearly from the Lord that, like, yes, Alex is your husband, future husband. And I was just dealing with the pressure of Alex and also our other leaders kind of like waiting on me to hear from God, and also to walk confidently, to be confident in his word. And I just remember feeling the burden of that weighty decision. And then also some of the conversation topics were like genuinely hard to talk about because we had to be very vulnerable and confess past sin to each other. So there were some like just challenging and like more emotional conversations like that.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, that definitely for me was very similar. Now, overall, I think the process was like, when I hear challenging, like there wasn't a whole lot of difficulty during that time. I felt very covered. I felt very relaxed through a lot of it. Although I will say there was one point, I think it was our second meeting, where I just threw everything at Sarah, all my life's ambitions, all the things that I had ever done in the past, and like all the stuff, and it was like really overwhelming for her. But just I can remember leaving that meeting like, I wonder if I just messed this whole thing up. But thankfully, because like we were walking this through with leaders, Sarah was able to take that to Pastor Rhonda at the time, and I was able to go to Pastor Michael and be like, I think I messed everything up. But through that, we were able to be like guided, and like I was reassured and she was reassured, and the courtship continued, which really helped because, later on when we had to get into some of the finer points of some of the like different stuff we had walked through, it really like, again, set a tone for us in the future where we didn't have to worry about, is this person gonna like, leave me because of this, and like there's none of that like fear there for me, and I'm sure we talked about it with you either, but yeah, it was good.
Yes.
One of the things that I would tell my younger self, well, I guess I need to go back just very briefly. I grew up in New Song Youth. I started going in 7th grade, at the same time as Sarah. We were the same class. And like it was really, really hammered, like guard your heart, seek Jesus first, don't date until you're like of a age and stage where that's appropriate. And man, like during high school, I was on it. Like I was like, nope, don't want to date you. And then there were moments where it was like, I really would consider like that, but I would humble myself and be like, go talk to leaders, go talk to parents, just like let them know kind of what was going on. And so when I graduated high school and went to college, I sort of moved away from that and didn't really kind of hold to that conviction that the Lord had. And so when I was in college, I dated somebody, and it was completely uncovered. It was not, it just led to like a really low point in my walk with the Lord, where I had not turned away from him completely, but was no longer hearing the voice of the Holy Spirit, was no longer hearing from him, and not seeking counsel. And like, so I came back from that, and, thankfully, like the Lord got a hold of my heart, and I repented and got with leaders and whatnot. But one of the things that I would just tell my younger self is don't lose the endurance. Continue to push for it, because, when the time came for me to learn more about what courtship is and was, I was like, I had already like gone through a breakup and heartbreak and all the things. And like, as I'm going through learning what courtship is, I'm like, gosh, man, I could have avoided all of that. Like it was completely unnecessary. So that was I would tell myself to stick to it and just put Jesus first and really focus in on that, rather than trying to pursue things on my own and think that I'm the exception to what God has.
That's good. Yeah. So what I would say now to my younger self about courtship was that just have trusted leaders guiding you along. And we had that. I had trusted leaders. I had good friends walking beside me, and just to trust the process and the advice that they were giving me, because our leaders didn't let us fail or feel like a failure at any point. And I just to not allow fear to cripple me, and to trust God and have faith in God, because even like the hard things that came up, that I initially would, was tempted to be afraid. I should have trusted God. And, ultimately I did just trusted what people were telling me, knowing that they've been through this, they've walked other people through this, and, that it was so right, even though it wasn't like necessarily easy. It was still what, God wanted for us.
Yeah.
So have faith in God.
Love those guys. That was so good. Hey, we just want to take a moment and thank you again for joining us today. We'd love for you to subscribe to the Wisdom Words podcast if you haven't already. And if you'd like to support this ministry, you can head to lifereachresources.com or newsongnashville.com and click the Give tab. Your support means so much to us and helps us bring Bible-based content to you and folks all over the world. All right, PD, what stuck out to you from Alex and Sarah's story?
Well, a couple of things. I thought it was so helpful. I love the stories where people talk about having been raised in an environment where they're taught to guard their hearts, and they walk that all the way through unto courtship and beyond. That's the ideal, and we love it when that happens. But I think a lot of people appreciate a story where somebody says, "Man, I got off track, and I learned these lessons. I walked this out through high school. Then I got into college, and I got off track." But then they come back around, and what they don't receive from anybody is condemnation. They receive commendation for having gotten back on track and said, "Okay, well, let's take it from here." And so I think Alex's story is the kind of story that a lot of people can relate to. I loved the idea that they were bringing out about really learning to know each other very, very deeply. That is one of the key things in courtship, that you take the kind of focus time you need, and you get the kind of prompts and questions you need to be able to go deep with another person and to know them very well. And keep in mind, these people had known each other since they were 12 years old, and now they're 24 years old, but there's so much that they had to learn. I appreciated even the providential aspect of their relationship, where they wound up during their courtship having to do part of their courtship at a distance. One had to go to Germany for work. The other had to go to Africa for a missions trip. And all of that actually then prepared them for Alex to be deployed into another part of the world for 6 months, and them still know how to communicate now as a husband and wife and expectant parents. I really appreciated them talking about the challenge of confessing past sins to one another, really understanding the good, the bad, and the sinful aspects, and the tremendous aspects of their history, because the more you know about someone's history, the better able you are to chart a future with them. And so I appreciated their honesty. I love them as a couple. I love the way they are together as a husband and wife. I love the way they are together as parents. And everybody's journey is a little bit different. And the path isn't always the same, but the principles are valid no matter what. And if you'll trust the Lord and you'll trust some good and godly leaders who are not looking to control you, but to coach you, you're going to get to where you need to get to, just like Alex and Sarah.
Yeah, it's a great example of how courtship is tailor-made. It's not a one-size-fits-all process. Different couples are going through different challenges or having different opportunities, and courtship is a nimble and customizable process for each of those couples. So love that. One of the things I love that Alex said is that courtship takes the pressure off trying to make this other person be impressed with you and like you and hopefully fall in love with you. It's really the difference between God building the fire and you building the fire. God making something happen between the two of you and you making something happen between the two of you. In most dating relationships, you feel the responsibility to build that fire. You feel the responsibility to gather the tinder and kindling and fuel wood and strike the match and stoke the fire and protect it at all costs. But in courtship, that pressure is off you. You can just spend time with your friend, getting to know one another, and it's God who builds the fire and deepens the attraction and gives revelation. And so that helps the couple know, without a doubt, if God is in this or not. I also loved what Alex said about him having to stop believing that he is the exception to wise principles. Man, that happens a lot. One of the main things that drives young people to these casual dating relationships is that they think, well, my situation is so unique. And I know this is going to work because me and him or me and her, we're like this. And because we're like this and this is our situation, we're just different. And I think it's a great reminder from Alex and Sarah that wisdom applies to everybody. What else stuck out to you, Dad?
I really appreciated just their deep level of humility and honesty. And if there are two things that are absolutely necessary for a successful courtship, it is humility and honesty. I'm going to be honest to God, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to walk in humility before God, trusting His grace. And I'm going to, in my life, and I'm going to walk in humility before you and trust God's grace in your life. Everything about their journey was absolutely saturated with humility and honesty and with genuine agape, with the genuine love of God, and that will always lead you to where you need to be. And unlike Alex and Sarah, if you go through a courtship process and find out, oh, this is a wonderful person, but not the person I'm supposed to marry, nobody's devastated. It's disappointing. But nobody's devastated because you've handled one another with tremendous love and tremendous care. And then, like Alex and Sarah, if this is what God has for you, you're going to get to your desired destination.
Yeah, the final thing I'll say is when Alex was asked what he would say to his younger self, he said, if I could go back, I would tell my younger self, don't lose the endurance. I would tell my younger self, stick with it, trust the Lord, it's worth it in the end. And that's why we've even said in earlier podcasts, think about your wedding day, rewind back to today. That's what you're guarding your heart for. Like Jessica said, you're guarding your heart for the right person at the right time to marry. That's worth sticking with it. So listen, we're not going to do any false advertising on these podcasts. It's going to be challenging to wait sometimes, everybody. It's going to be hard. We're not going to say, oh, it's easy, no, easy breezy, no problem, waiting for God's best and God's timing. It's not always easy, but it is always worth it. That we can promise you is that finding the right person in the right timing to marry is worth the wait. So as Alex said, we say to you, if you're in that season of singleness, don't lose the endurance, stick with it, trust the Lord, and it is going to be worth it. Well, we hope you've enjoyed these stories today. On our next episode, we're going to hear more stories from married couples who've walked this courtship process out. You're not going to want to miss it. They're really, really going to encourage and inspire you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our new episodes. If you'd like to support our ministry, head to lifereachresources.com or newsongnashville.com and click the Give tab to help us continue to bring Bible-based content to you and others around the world. Join us next time here on the Wisdom Words Podcast.